Hello? Oh gosh. Hello. Good evening, gamers. Hi, hello. Hello, Young Moon Oliver. Welcome. How are you? Well. Well. Today's been a day, I guess. Could have gone better, but we're here. How about you guys? How have your days been? No, I forgot. Heart rate monitor. Doing great, doing good, excited for the stream. I'm glad to hear it. Let me get this set up. Oh, my joints are cracking. Where? Oh, hang on. Where is it? I have the strap. Where's the actual thing? Where did I put it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I just ate like a huge meal and now I feel like my humanity has been restored. It was good. I needed that. Also, this is very random, I guess, but I'm really bad with geography. But recently I was like, okay, let me memorize all the states of the US. And now I can successfully name all of them. Yay! It was very spotty before. I think I could probably only name like, let me think. Maybe 5 states? So, and now I can name all 50. Isn't that amazing? What growth. I still can't do that. It's hard! But I need to go to the app. That's right. Also, these days the veggie dance song keeps getting stuck in my head. Now do the veggie dance. Let me drink some water and then we can start. Let's go. Continue mode. IR2. Oh, that's right. We were. Is it backstory time? There had once been a certain experiment, but it was an experiment she had known nothing of. Oh. She was a perfectly ordinary housewife and had been blessed with a second child in her womb before turning 40. No, perhaps perfectly ordinary might not have fit her quite so well. After all, her eldest daughter was already old enough to enter high school, a 15-year gap from the second child. That is pretty large. She had been slightly worried that her eldest daughter, adolescent that she was, would oppose to the pregnancy. However, the exact opposite proved to be true. Her daughter's heart sank when she heard the news. Her husband, an established scientist, often lost himself in his research on fate, and rarely ever came home to his family. But when he was home, he always did his best to be a good husband and father. So while she housed some dissatisfactions, they would never surpass the love she held for her husband. Her second child was delivered without issue, a healthy girl of 2,579 grams. She named the child Mama. Soon after, her husband was unfortunately made to transfer far away. Her husband held no capacity to support himself with even the most basic of life skills, forcing her to ask her stable daughter to go with him and tend to her father's needs. Since she was now living alone with the newborn Mama, they then opted to move to an affordable company housing as per the husband's plan. She had initially been living in an apartment within the suburbs, but this made transport inconvenient. The new company house, however, was in the best area in Shibuya, and many of her husband's colleagues' families lived close by. Her considerate husband claimed that, because of this, there would be nothing to worry about in her times of need, including when she needed help with the baby. Every room in the company house was spacious, and she particularly favored the bedroom. One wall was home to a large mirror, and the opposite wall had an even larger window. From there, she could view the luscious greenery of Yoyogi Park. She then went on to quickly befriend a housewife living close by, and received extraordinary treatment from the company. Namely, being provided a housekeeper. She was proud of her husband for holding such an important position within his company, one that allowed her to live in such a luxurious way. And so, her life without worries nor dissatisfaction continued. 2 years passed. Amana had experienced delayed growth. She had grown into a healthy child, all while not contracting any major illnesses. She was a very pampered child. If she did not cradle Mana in her arms, the girl would start crying in a voice so shrill it could shatter even the thickest glass. Regrettably, she had fallen ill about a month prior. A particularly grave symptom was a fierce tinnitus, something she suffered from throughout most hours of the day. Fortunately for her, the housekeeper and housewife next door were more than willing to assist her with taking care of Mana. Regardless of the help she received, she was essentially joined at the hip with Mana and was never able to part from her for even a moment. Even when going to the bathroom, even when taking a bath, if a thought were to even cross her mind about having the housekeeper cradle the baby for a short time, Mana would detect these intentions and immediately burst into tears. Contrary to what one might surmise, she actually found endearment in how much Mana clung to her, but due to the inseparability of the two, she continued to live a life where she could never take even a single step out of her own home. Her lifestyle was entirely supported by the housekeeper and the housewife. For her, meeting the two had become her true saving grace. However, over time, something odd began to happen with the two helpers. During a friendly chat in the living room that had occurred a week prior, the housewife had spontaneously vomited without warning. Paying no heed to the confusion she showed, the housewife then rushed outside. She had not seen her since, leaving her to worry that she had perhaps fallen ill. Concerned, she decided to ask the housekeeper if she could check on her. As the housekeeper left that day, she made her request, concluding with an, "I'd love your help tomorrow as well, dear." And yet, when the housekeeper heard these words, she suddenly burst into tears and could only nod again and again as she departed. What is happening here? The tinnitus had been tormenting her, so it became fiercer that night, to the point where it felt as if her head itself might split apart. She tried calling an ambulance, but the line refused to connect. She then tried going outside to ask the neighboring housewife for help, but even that proved too much for her. Throughout all of this, her daughter had continued to cry incessantly, further agitating her pain. In order to endure this terrible pain, she embraced her beloved Mana, and as she did so, both the tinnitus and the crying abruptly stopped. The pain in her head vanished just as suddenly, almost as if it had never been there to begin with. She then looked down only to see a child she was holding was now a mummified corpse. In spite of how heavily it had been crying until that very moment, the body had suddenly become a desiccated, rotting mound of flesh, one that gave off the most repulsive stench. Oh gosh. And so before she could ever realize it was all an experiment, her mind broke. I see. Dang. There had once been a certain experiment, but it was an experiment that ran different to how he had hypothesized. He was a scientist at Nozumi Technology, a follower of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light, the man at the center of Nozumi's strictly confidential Project Noah, and the man that had deciphered 10 to the power 10 times 10 to the power 40 equals IR2. He had offered his wife on the verge of childbirth as a test subject for the experiment. Although it had been an instruction from the founder that he revered, it had been just as much his own suggestion, all to ensure the success of the experiment. It was christened the Mana experiment, after the codename given to their second daughter. His eldest daughter, 15, was placed in a Cosmic Church of the Divine Light institution. All he observed his confined wife and infant child for 24 hours a day. When is he sleeping? And a good look in this game. Hello, you're welcome. Thank you. I'll do my best. His wife had been led to believe that the place she resided in was a company house, but in reality, it was a test site that Nozumi Technology had prepared, a site containing the Noah 2 prototype he was developing. Mind reading, visual projection, and control over the 5 senses. In order to research the effects of such practices, he locked his wife and daughter Mana in the site as test subjects. Not much was known about the effects of electromagnetic radiation on the human body, so he very much intended to halt the experiment immediately if his wife or child showed any strange abnormalities. The experiment was then met with an unfortunate accident soon after it began. Oh gosh. Mana passed away at 1 month of age, her cause of death unknown. Hello, Xoi, welcome! It was an accident nobody could have prevented. He was overcome with sorrow and attempted to bring the experiment to close, and yet such a thing was not permitted to him. Those were the words of his employer. His employer was referring to the bizarre sight visible within the experiment. His wife did not seem to recognize Mana's death as real, and instead treated her remains as if they were still her child. In her eyes, Mana had never died. But in truth, these things were all a simple projection, a reality only she was privy to. This was an effect of the Noah 2 prototype, and in a certain sense, the situation provided an optimal opportunity to test its capabilities. Consequently, he had his wishes disregarded. Eventually, even he came to think that continuing the experiment would be best for his wife's sake. Looking upon the one-way mirror, his wife would embrace the corpse of their child and lived her every day in blissful happiness. She would gaze through the window toward the greenery of Yoyogi Park. But in reality, the window was a mere wallpaper, and the scenery a projection. And yet she simply smiled at the view, all gently tending to her child as she cooed. Staff belonging to the research team would take care of his wife. I see, with one playing the role of a neighboring housewife and the other a housekeeper. As long as the experiment continued, her mind would never break. As such, he told himself this was all for his wife's sake. Though in truth, perhaps his mind had broken far before his wife's ever could. At some point in time, his goal had changed from completing Noah 2 to forcing his wife to continue living an endless dream. After continuing the experiment for 2 years, his employer suddenly announced an end to the project.
データは十分取れました。ノア2本格稼働は間近です。この実験ももう続ける意味はないでしょう。
He vehemently opposed this, his desperation evident, and yet his project had him branded a traitor, and he was subsequently removed from the project. As a gesture of kindness, he was permitted to be present at the test site on the final day of the experiment, albeit within restraints. And with him, his daughter, of whom he had not seen across those full 2 years, was forced to be present. A look of bewilderment rose to her face when she noticed him.
父さん、これはどういうこと？母さんに何をしたの？母さんが抱いているのは一体。
He was unable to answer. His guilt over what he had done prevented him from looking his daughter in the eye. Meanwhile, the start of a ghastly ritual was drawing near. The housewife had long since become unable to endure Mana's rotting stench, and the housekeeper had left the test site in tears in response to his wife's words. Then the equipment was stopped, the dream ended, and his wife broke. In her eyes, what was once her child had suddenly transformed into a mummy. Oh, a sight that brought her to scratch at her scalp, tear out her hair, dig her fingernails into the flesh of her face, and then, oh, I'm scared. And to ravenously devour the desiccated body of her own child. The sound effects, oh gosh. Through every tear of flesh, she continued to laugh maniacally, bang her head against the wall. Before eventually, she took a kitchen knife, drove the blade into her own eyes, and died right where she stood. Oh goodness. The daughter cried and screamed as she watched her mother's horrific end from beyond the one-way mirror. Oh man. Man. Part of me is like, why would they even want her to be there? But I guess it was... They want her to break as well. Somehow. His daughter is then taken away by two researchers, one taking hold of each arm. He was not even granted the opportunity to pursue his only remaining relative. Man. He blamed himself for everything, believing he had reaped what he himself had sowed. Regardless of his reasons, when he had resolved to continue the experiment 2 years ago, it had been obvious how things would end. Mere days after bearing witness to his wife's death, he vanished. And now, nary a soul knew of his current whereabouts. I sound so wrong, like I won't have a chainsaw or at least remove sharp items from around her before starting the return. It's not like you're getting anything out of it. Yeah. Like, yeah, it said they had him in restraints, right? So, like, why would they not? Like, surely they would know, you know? But, I mean, maybe it was on purpose, though, right? If they wanted Senna to see that sight. But after everything had settled, Senna had gone on to interrogate Kozuki about something with bloodshot eyes. And then, after doing that for a bit, she ran off somewhere on her own. Kozuki had chased after her, but I, meanwhile, had just been staying put. Still incredibly confused as to why Senna had become so obsessive all of a sudden. And now, I was trudging to Shimokitazawa. My parents' house was only a short distance away. Walking from my base to it took less than half an hour. Could Nanami be there? They're not as busy as Shibuya itself. The roads of Shimokitazawa were fairly crowded. I was still being hit by the aftermath of that Esper debacle, namely, some passers-by looking at me with mocking sneers, while others even took pictures of me on their phones. Overwhelmed by embarrassment and humiliation, I hurried along the road to home. Mimi's eyes were pointed to the ground as she said that. She was walking a bit behind me, and in the time we'd spent moving along, she'd already repeated those words over 10 times. No matter how much she apologized, I had no way of answering. I didn't know anything about Mimi. Nothing had changed ever since we'd first met, and yet, she supported me. She stayed by my side. At the end of the day, there was still so much I didn't know about her. Even so, I'd always brushed that issue out of my mind. Perhaps it was because something in me knew that she wouldn't stay with me if I knew the truth. And that terrified me.
どうして僕と一緒にいてくれるの?
I worked up the courage and asked her what was on my mind. I asked her the reason why she would stay with a guy like me. Was it because she was trying to lure me into a trap the entire time, just like Yua had? And yet, despite my suspicions, the answer she gave was nothing of the sort.
あなたに目覚めて欲しくないの。普通の生活を送って欲しかった。
Didn't want me to awaken? Like, as a gigalomaniac? Mimi knew more about me than I did.
一体君は何者なの?
私は
Mimi hesitated a little.
私はタクの友達だって思ってる。友達でいたいな。
In other words, she was telling me to stop pushing? There's no way I could stop
僕は
there.
ギガロマニアックスなの。
そうとも言えるし、違うとも言える。
You also aren't. Which was it? Was she trying to dodge the question?
君は IR2 のこと知ってたの?
聞いたことがあるだけ。
She didn't say from who.
セナが言ってたのは本当なの?
嘘だよ。
Lies. Telling me it was all lies was a lie in and of itself. I could tell just from looking at her.
君は
I was about to ask more, but I held my tongue. Are you my enemy or are you my friend? Depending on the answer, I might not have been able to stay with Amy, so I didn't ask. If I pretended that nothing had happened, I could keep on deceiving myself just as I had been up until now. That way it might be easier for me. Happier, even. Okay, that was what I was gonna do. I was gonna keep being ignorant and keep living a lie told by Amy. Amy had saved my ass so many times already, so there's no way any harm would come to me if I did that. I deserve to live a normal life, just like she'd said.
ありがとう。
I averted my eyes from her and swapped out my question for a few words of gratitude.
守ってくれて。
だから
I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I just continued walking toward my parents' house in silence. My eyes were eventually met with a familiar alleyway. It was a quiet, secluded residential area. Every now and then I could hear the faint sound of a train in the distance. I'd known this specific chunk of scenery ever since I was a little kid. This was where I'd grown up. I'd walked to both elementary school and middle school using this alleyway. If I headed through the narrow alleyway in front of me, my house would be right there. I was scared of seeing Nanami again, but I had to know for certain whether her arm was still there. That's right, we got that phone call last time. I stopped and took a deep breath to calm myself, and then, right when I was about to start walking again...
待って
Yeah? I turned around to see Amy on the verge of
どう
tears.
しても行くの
Oh gosh, is something bad gonna happen if we go?
ねえ行かないでもう普通じゃいられなくなるよ 私そんなの嫌だな
What was that supposed
帰ろ
to?
う
Oh
あ
gosh.
のコンテナハウスに帰ろう私タクが望む限りずっと一緒にいるからそれで一緒に学校に行って大臣と3人で他愛もない話をして帰りに立ち食いそば屋さんとか CD ショップとかに寄ってそうやってこれからもやっていこうよ
It does sound nice. I'm really curious though about what is
僕は
there.
ナナミに会わなくちゃ。
いないよきっと
What will be there then? Why was she so sure? Or was it just another lie? Did something bad happen to me if I went home?
私
It just sounds really nice indeed, yeah.
タクの悲しむ顔見たくない
So you say.
謎かけみたいなことはやめてよ。
I'd had enough. She was telling me to stay ignorant forever? I couldn't go on like this, pretending like I knew nothing. Of course I couldn't. Each and every person I knew just kept hitting me with non-stop cryptic nonsense. It never ended. I really did want to stay ignorant. I really
実
did.
家に行っちゃいけない理由があるなら言ってよ。こんな中途半端なのうんざりなんだ。
Sick of it. Did I have any right to say that? Wasn't I the one who always half-assed everything? Never said what I really meant? Wasn't I the one who always ran away from everything? Yeah, I was. All the more reason to just keep doing that from now until forever. It was time to go home. Mimi was right. I didn't need to see Nanami at all. Oh, okay. Are we really? We're not gonna go? If I was planning on checking whether she had a right hand or not, then what the hell would I do if she didn't? Wouldn't that be all my fault? Nanami would hate me, resent me. All I would have done was solidify that I was a pathetic loser that couldn't even save his own little sister. If I left everything in the air like it was now, I wouldn't have to be loaded with guilt. So, that was what I'd do. It was the optimal choice. Don't look at anything. No matter how many mysteries come your way, ignore them. Shut yourself away from the world.
ほんと世話が焼けるなナナがいないと 何もできないんだから。
ダメだ。
Nanami's cheerful voice popped into my
ダ
head.
メだよ。
If I ran away now, I wouldn't be able to face Nanami for the rest of my life. I wouldn't be able to go back home for the rest of my life.
タク、
While we're going, I clenched my fists and stepped forward into the narrow alleyway that led to my parents' house. I was less than 50 meters away now. Okay, let me drink some water first. At first, I just speed walked. Then I started running toward the home I'd been raised in. 30 meters to go. 20 meters. 10 meters. Okay. 0 meters. And when I looked, the house I knew was gone. Oh?
あれ
The name on the door plate was wrong. It wasn't Nishijou. In fact, the entire shape of the house was wrong. It was far newer and nicer than the home I had lived in. I looked around. I wondered if I'd mistaken one of the neighboring houses for mine. But I hadn't. Actually, none of the surrounding scenery lined up with my memories. I considered that maybe I'd gotten lost or taken the wrong alley, but there was no way that could have happened. I'd recognized the entire route until now. I knew for a fact I remembered the route. But my home wasn't at the end of it. After taking the path of my memories, the scenery that should have been there hadn't appeared, and a completely unfamiliar one had instead. Jamais vu. What should have been a familiar place felt like I was setting foot in it for the first
シャ
time.
メビューだ。
違うよ。
It's not? Mimi stood behind me. She had denied my words immediately.
この世界に
In this world?
タクの帰る場所はないの。
Okay. What does that mean exactly? Is Nanami real? Does she exist in this world? The sunset illuminated the lone corridor of the hospital. The lights were not turned on in the short period before night fell, rendering it fairly dim. The clamor of dinner time from before had calmed, and an eerie silence descended in its place. Shogun was slowly traveling down the corridor in his wheelchair. The creaking of the wheels echoed throughout the empty hall. Many nurses passed him by, but none spoke to him, nor even so much as glanced his way. Acting as though this was perfectly normal, Shogun continued to spin the wheels with his hands, emaciated skin and bone as they were. When he passed in front of one of the rooms, a male patient known as Yamai called out to him. He pointed at him with his index finger, sounding a frantic cry. Together with Yamai, the nurse had a face of complete befuddlement.
ほら、アミちゃんが帰ってきたよ。またお外に出かけてたんだ。いけないんだ。
誰もいませんよ。
The nurse looked around and looked at the man with a forced smile on her face. Despite the fact that Shogun was passing through the corridor right before her very eyes, the nurse spoke as if there was no one there at all.
また山井さんは私のことからかってるんでしょう。でも今日は騙されませんからね。
アミちゃん、ラウミちゃん、
No?
タウミちゃん。
Yamai became increasingly worked up as he continued to cry out. Shogun simply ignored him and silently turned right at the end of the hallway. Ooh, here. The wall, which had been cream-colored up until that very moment, suddenly changed to black. And yet, even though that wall stood right in front of him, Shogun did not halt his wheelchair. Is he gonna go through? Right before he was about to collide with it, the black wall suddenly vanished. It quite literally, had vanished. After the wall disappeared, a hidden corridor appeared from beyond its past reign. Shogun continued straight through it. He traveled another 20 meters before finally reaching a true dead end. At that dead end was a lone door to a hospital room. Shogun opened the door and headed inside. It was the Phantom Hospital Room, the ghost story whispered about for many years, the tale of a room nobody knew of, and the person hospitalized within it, the name written upon the nameplate was... Shiro Takumi. Dun dun dun. Okay. Oh! Chapter 8. IR2. Finish Chapter 8. Okay, Chapter 9. Giggle Maniac. Are we on the train? From the train windows, an indigo blue could be seen permeating the sky. The trains of the Yamanote line grew chaotic as businessmen and students alike made their way back to their homes. Two of its passengers, Kusunoki Yua and Yasuji Ban, stood shoulder to shoulder as they shook along with the commuting train, holding onto its hanging straps for stability. They were admittedly an odd pair, and perhaps due to how much they stood out, Yua had been feeling constant gazes coming from all around her. It would stand to reason that this was why she was repeatedly fidgeting with her hair and glasses. She was still not yet acquainted enough with the detective Ban to strike up a casual conversation with him. She'd only met him a few days prior, after all. Shinjuku was only a single station away from Shibuya, and yet the 3 minutes it took to reach there felt hopelessly longer than they should have. Ban simply stood silently, gazing out the window. He made no attempt to speak with Yua. Yua's current impression of Ban was that he did not seem to be a bad person, but that he was still somewhat frightening. She had met other detectives that were on the case involving her sister, but none of them had left an especially good impression. Perhaps that left her with an unconscious prejudice against detectives, and by extension, Ban. Or so she had concluded in her introspection.
だから地下15階の番人倒せば隠しダンジョン行けるだろ常識的に考えて
Ever since the two of them had boarded the train at Shinjuku Station, two men standing near the door had been talking in an excessively loud manner. Regardless of her desires, Yua was forced to listen to those two talking loud as could be, all without an ounce of consideration for those around them.
マップの左端の方だよ一目でわかるだろ番人
っていうか、万人と警官の区別つかないぞな、もし。
いやいやどう見ても番人だろどこが警官なんだよ番人は銃持ってねえよ
Both of them wore plain clothes, bandanas, fingerless gloves, and bulging rucksacks on their backs. The two were a pair of so-called otakus. Yua herself was interested in and thus consumed both anime and manga, so it was not their appearances that left her surprised. She had simply never been to Akihabara before, so it was her first time seeing a stereotypical otaku, complete with the clothes and everything. Realizing her curious glances were quite rude, she quickly averted her eyes. In the seat directly in front of her, a high school girl with brown hair and a navy blue blazer was typing a message on her cell phone. Her gaudy artificial nails tapped on the screen rapidly, and every time her fingers moved, her cell phone strap of a pistol swung back and forth. Naturally, Yua had seen the contents of her message. This was not through any fault of her own, however. The girl was holding her phone horizontally, giving everyone around her free rein to see everything she wrote. It was so easy to see, in fact, it was almost as if she wanted Yua to see it. What was in the message? Okay, so, like, yesterday I went to Mixer with, co-op, and was so boring. Guy couldn't read room at all, so annoying, like, OMG. Despite being a high school girl herself, Yua could not even begin to grasp the contents of the message. It was possible that it could have been Gyaru speak, but to her, it looked like nothing short of a coded message. All of a sudden, the voice of a child rang throughout the train's interior. Startled, Yua turned toward the source of the sound. A lone boy about 5 years of age stood right beside Ban. He held a squirt gun in his hand, its muzzle pointed straight at Ban. The boy even pulled the trigger, but no water came out from the end of it. Ban gave the child a big smile. His eyes, meanwhile, told a different story. However, despite the message Bond attempted to convey, the child showed no intention of
ノブ君
stopping.
やめなさい
A woman, likely his mother, rushed to her son's side. She turned toward Bond and politely bowed.
すいませんバーンバーンノブ君やめな
The
さ
kid
い
just
って
keeps going, huh? The mother scolded her son in an attempt to make him stop, but her reprimanding never extended beyond verbal. She did not take the water gun from him, nor did she attempt to grab his hand.
バーンバーンバーンあ本当にすいません
ああ構いませんよ。
バーンバーンバーンおじさんが困ってるでしょノブ君
To her, the scene seemed very unnatural. The mother was clearly angry at her child and showed an apologetic demeanor toward Bond, but that was the only thing normal about it.
バーンバーンバーン
Is it like before, like at the ghetto froggy store, and she was like, it seems like they
やめ
keep
なさい
saying his
怒るわよ
name.
バーンバーンバーン
The boy remained completely indifferent and unresponsive, simply choosing to repeat the same word over and over again. And yet, despite his inaction, the mother made no attempts to stop him with anything other than
本
words.
当にすいませんバーンバーンバーン
And for some reason, Bond simply sat there and let the boy do as he pleased.
バーン
In the end, the scene continued on until they arrived at Shibuya Station. When coming to a full stop at the station, the train doors opened, but the mother and son showed no signs that they intended to disembark. Relieved, Yuek exited onto the platform along with Bond. Taking a peek at his expression, she saw a clearly forced smile sitting upon his face.
お急ぎ中のお客様にお知らせいたします。地下鉄番号門線
Revolving Bond.
失礼しました。半蔵門線は人身事故の影響でただいま振り替え運転を行っております。お客様には大変ご迷惑をおかけして申し訳ございません。
最近よく感じるんだ。
A crowd of people came and went through the platform. As Bond walked through along with that crowd toward the Hachiko gate, he began whispering to Yua.
まるで不特定多数の人間にストーカーされてるような気がするんだよな。
どういうことですか
さっきみたいなことがよくあるって話さ。周囲の人間の何気ない行動がまるで自分への嫌がらせじゃねえかって思えてくるわけ。
This was the reason why Bond had shown no reaction to the boy's mischief. Events such as those, ones that did not present much trouble, were becoming an everyday occurrence for him. Once he had begun picking up on it, it made it difficult for him to stay of sound mind.
まあ考えすぎだろうが、俺みたいなただ集団ストーカーってのは確かに存在するんだよな。
Let's read the tips list. Okay. An organized form of stalking. Despite what the name implies, it does not mean that a group of people simply follow a victim. Instead, it refers to repeat minor offenses, often various forms of harassment, perpetrated against an individual by several individuals. In some cases, the harassment is done with utter sophistication. The victim has no way to perceive the many incidents as connected. Specific examples of this harassment may include a victim being repeatedly bumped into by various people they don't know, a car honking endlessly in front of the victim's house late at night, people the victim has never met before alluding to private information only the victim should know, etc. Okay, welcome! Even though each of these offenses are not a cause for worry when viewed alone, if they continue to occur several times a day over the course of several months, the victim will begin to deteriorate mentally. This eventually results in the victim growing terrified of everything around them, even the most mundane things that weren't actually intended to be a part of the stalking effort, and no longer being able to trust anyone. However, there is a very fine line between actual gang stalking and someone suffering from a persecution complex, so identifying gang stalking as such must be done with extreme caution. I see.
普通のストーカー行為とは何が違うんですか
被害を受けてる側からすると相手の意図や目的正体すら全く分かんない。ただ誰かの行く先々で
毎日の集団ストーカーってのはそういうもんだ。
ただの考えすぎっていう可能性は。
十分にあり得るだろう。脅迫か俺の場合はそうでもなさそうなんだけどな。
と言いますと。
手を引けって脅迫する匿名の電話が何度かかかってきてな。
For some reason, Bon laughed as he told her that. Yua, however, was frightened and wrapped her arms around herself in an attempt to bring her comfort.
それだ。
まあ、デカにはよくあることさ。
Upon saying that, Bon immediately stiffened his expression and looked at Yua.
ユアちゃんは最近そんなようなことはないかい？
はい。
身の回りでちょっとでも違和感を覚えることがあったらすぐにおじさんに言ってくれ。ユアちゃんの身の安全を守るのは警察の仕事だからな。
はい。
Having listened to his words, Yua realized she was involved in something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Spooky.
あなたは妄想の存在なんだよ。
Oh. Her voice a whisper, Limi said something nonsensical. Ignoring what she'd said, I glanced at the various houses around me. In this place well rooted in my memories, in this place I couldn't seem to recognize. Houses that should have been there were nowhere to be seen. Houses that shouldn't have been there were all I could see. The gap, the disparity between what I knew in my memories and the real scenery surrounding me was getting wider and wider. Telling those thoughts aloud, I desperately denied the despair welling up in my heart. Yeah, there wasn't any gap, not in the slightest. I'd just taken a wrong turn. This wasn't the right street. It was just a misunderstanding on my part. There's nothing wrong with the world. To think otherwise would be ridiculous. Stumbling my way back down the street I'd come from, I burst into the neighboring alleyway. But just as I'd feared, between my memories and what I actually saw, something felt out of place. I realized that my entire body was soaked in sweat. My eyes refused to focus and my feet didn't feel well secured to the ground. All those feelings together hit me with an intense wave of nausea.
なんでここに僕の家がある。僕はいつもここから小学校にはナナミと手をつないで中学は自転車で。
どこの中学校？
Mimi, who had been following me, quietly asked the simple question. Was the school we went to, is it not going to exist either?
どこって。
なんていう学校？
そんなの決まってるじゃないか。地元の。
Can't remember? It's,
あれ、
I couldn't remember. I'd gone to middle school, I had clear memories of it, but I couldn't remember any of the finer details. It was as if some intense haze was covering my mind. The name of my middle school, which class I'd been a part of, or even the name of my homeroom teacher. No specific names came to me.
そんなはずないんだ。ただ忘れてるだけで。
タク、聞いて。あなたの記憶にあるのはこの場所に家があるじゃなくて、この場所に家があるはずっていう思い込み。そうでしょ？
My sanity was hanging on by a thread.
だって僕はここに来るまでの道は覚えてるんだぞ。おかしいじゃないか。
それは作られた記憶だから。
Stop making that face. Mimi's eyes were pointed straight at the ground and she looked terribly sad. Without looking up at me, she just continued saying the most confusing, nonsensical things. Things that, once again, I didn't understand. Things that were impossible to understand. So I stopped trying.
タクは中学には通ってないの？
わかったぞ。これドッキリでしょ。そうなんでしょ。 きっとあれだ。そう、リミとナナミが実は知り合いとかで僕を二人して騙そうとしてるんだ。なんだ、そうかそうか。ビビった。
Should have gone back to the container with Mimi. Yeah, I guess so for his sanity, but I tried my best to laugh it off, but Mimi didn't even so much as chuckle. As maybe after IR2, did they just like nozzle me? Did they keep us somewhere and then we were living a false life?
これからあなたを傷つけることを言わなくちゃ。タク、あなたはね、本来いちゃいけない存在なんだよ。
Never existed. Dang. She was just trying to deceive me. Nima was my enemy, just like all the others.
貼り付けはリミの仕業だな。
That was true. And what happened at the crime scene when I first met her hadn't been a delusion. The true culprit behind Eugen wasn't the man I'd seen on the hospital TV earlier today. It was Mimi. She had been monitoring me the entire time. She knew I'd witnessed everything, so she refused to let me out of her sight. Also, I would never tell anyone else what I'd seen. That was the sole reason she bothered staying with me all this time.
君あの時っちは。
あれはあなたの望んだ妄想。ギガロマニアックスの妄想はね、強すぎる場合、時に混じり合うの。妄想がシンクロするんだ。
Calmly, as though she was talking to herself, Mimi spoke. And yet, her composure only served to piss me off even more. Okay.
少なくともあの時、あの場所では4つの妄想がシンクロしてた。
At least 4 delusions. Well, that's quite a few. That's no! No. One. One, not escape. Let's save. We should be fine. Oopsies. I guess we'll just go no delusion. I'm kind of curious what would happen though, but yeah. But let me actually go get some more water real quick. Let me think. Do I have a poll question? Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I see Sushi is in the lead right now. Okay. Welcome. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we'll just go no delusion.
タクと私とニュージェネの犯人と
So I guess Nimi was there? Question mark. But
信じるもんか。
who else? Who is the fourth person? No! Before she could continue, I cut her off. I then covered my ears and closed my eyes.
これは妄想だ。そうだよ、妄想なんだ。いつもしているみたいな。
妄想はしないで。
She spoke in a quiet yet serious, imperative tone. I gulped.
でないと私、タ
Hmm.
クを消さなくちゃいけなくなる。
殺すの？
A chill ran down my spine. My perception of Mimi, the girl I thought would save me, was rapidly spiraling. Now she was turning into someone completely unrecognizable
殺
to me.
すんだな。やっぱり君が殺人犯なんだ。
So why did she look so? Biting her lip as she fought back tears, thinking her head low as could be, it all made me hesitant to accuse her of anything. Tell me it's all a lie. Tell me it's all a prank so we can laugh it off. If you do, we can go back to how it used to be between us. I want to go back.
だったら僕はなんな。
ギガロマニアックスの妄想によって作られた人間かな。
バカらしい。
Huh. I wonder though, this gigalomaniac in question. Is it Shogun? Or her? Or
僕には
someone else?
ちゃんと記憶があるんだ。中学の頃の細かい記憶は思い出せないけど、忘れちゃっただけで。
あなたが生まれたのは1年半前なの。
A year and a half ago. A year and a half ago? That would have been when I just started high
だったら
school.
僕は1歳半の赤ん坊っていうことじゃないか。バブ言ってなくちゃおかしい。
タクは生まれた瞬間からタクだった。
君がその目で見たっていい。
私とあなたが会ったのは1ヶ月前。貼り付けの現場。私
Okay,
は
I
もともと
see.
水泳の生徒じゃないから。
She was at a tier not even Senra Ayase could hope to match.
誰が僕を妄想したの？言ってみてよ。
西条匠くんだよ。
入ったアウト。僕が妄想なんでしょ。その僕が妄想して僕を作ったって矛盾してるじゃないか。はい、論破終了。それとも君の妄想？君が勝手に作り出した君だけの脳内設定なんでしょ。
私だってここにも来てほしくなかった。もっと強く引き止めればよかったね。
Then, gathering her resolve, Mimi raised her head and looked straight at me. Her eyes glimmered with sincerity. It didn't seem like she was lying. She felt entirely genuine.
でもここまで来たら本当のことを知ってもらった方がいいと思う。
Okay. But it wasn't the truth. It was all a lie. It had to be. Otherwise, my last thread of sanity would snap. Besides, who would ever believe someone who suddenly decided to hit them with, "Oh yeah, BT dubs, you're a delusion."
あなたの行動が 他の人の命を削っていくんだって知ってもらった方が。
そうだ。ナナミは僕が妄想だったら、僕と血が繋がってるナナミも両親も妄想ってこと？そんなの無茶苦茶。
ナナちゃんはいるよ。
Nana-chan. From the way Nimi talked about her, it was almost as if she knew her.
ナナミを誘拐したのは、君なの。
似たようなものかもね。私はタクを守ることに気を取られすぎて、ナナちゃんが狙われる可能性を考えてなかった。私は誘拐犯のこと知ってる。
She was kidnapped. She really was a demon girl. I was right. I'd always been right. Mimi was the only one I'd wanted to be on my side, and even though I'd always believed that, there had always been more than enough reasons to doubt her. And yet, even so, I feigned ignorance and simply trusted that she'd keep her promise to stay by my side. But despite all that, just like Yua, Mimi was...
君も僕を裏切るんだね。
そうだね。私はごめんね。私のこと恨んでいい？
謝られたって。
Despite my
僕は
words,
信じない。
it was impossible for me to prove that I was real. All the supernatural things I'd seen up until now flashed through my mind. And that's when I knew I couldn't just laugh off her words as some insane ass fool. As I thought that, Mimi slowly began to approach me and then embraced me. Taken completely by surprise, I surrendered myself to her. I could feel her warmth. She had saved me. She had saved my soul. She had taught me nothing but kindness. But now, despite being in the center of her embrace, her warmth could not have felt more
そ
distant.
ろそろ行かなきゃ。
行くってどこへ？
ナナちゃんをさらった誘拐犯のところ。決着つけなくちゃいけないの。ナナちゃんのことも他のことも。このままだとタクも守りきれないし。
そんなの無責任だ。僕にここまでひどいこと言っておいて逃げるの？
Mimi started inching away from me, one step, then another. Slowly, she distanced herself.
戻ってくるから。タクは部屋にいて。そしたらまた一緒にいろいろ楽しいお話しよう。あなたはあそこにいてもいいんだよ。
Such a gentle tone. Even though she had said all those cruel things, why was she still being so nice to me?
でも一つだけ約束。もう妄想はしない。
No more
タクの妄想力は
delusions.
とっても強いから、妄想すればするほど本物のあなたの命が削られていっちゃうんだ。
何を？
それじゃあまた明日。石。
Bishi. Mimi struck a pose, suddenly with the most unnatural smile on her face. It could not have been more forced. And only a moment later, from her eyes, quiet tears began to fall. Mimi frantically turned her back to me, and as her shoulders started to tremble, she ran away. And I, having been left behind in a stupor, sank helplessly to my knees.
本物の僕ってなんだよ。僕は偽物じゃない。
All color vanished from the world. All hope I'd once had was gone. My very existence had been denied. There's no meaning in me being here. Not even my death held any meaning. Mimi had left me, leaving behind a meaningless husk. She was my enemy. She had deceived me. And now, having said her piece, she had probably lost her final remaining reason to be with
戻
me.
ってくるはずない。
Mimi had abandoned me. But of course she had. I was a delusionary existence, according to her. A monster. Forget it. I didn't care anymore. With no willpower to even stand up, I just stayed there, still unable to organize my thoughts, incapable of crying due to the sheer shock. The twilight wind robbed me of all warmth. Oh, it's gotten really dark. And the very little that remained of Davies faded completely. He's like, no tooth or whatever. Yeah. Well, I looked up at the sky for no particular reason. I gazed at the sunset, a sunset that had almost been completely eroded by the dark of night. Okay.
これが新作？またへんてこね。
Melissa smiled as she stared fixedly at the ghetto froggy keychain Bana just purchased.
でも可愛いじゃない？
そりゃ
Ghetto
新作じゃね
froggy!
えよ。先週出たなんだっけ。
Ban looked over at you as if pleading for help.
涙目ゲロカエルンです。
Teary
ああ、
ghetto
そうそう
froggy.
それ
ごめんね、ゆあちゃん。こんなむさ苦しいおじさんに付き合わされて大変だったでしょう。
いえ、
ひでえな、ももちゃん。こんなダンディーな中年はなかなかいねえぜ。
With Van's half-joking protest falling on deaf ears, the president of Frisia served Yua some tea. Heaving a deep sigh, Van sat down on the chair and glanced around the office. The employees of Frisia, who usually worked well into the night, had actually returned home on time today. Each worker's schedule is arranged to tell this exact tale on the whiteboard. Thanks to their departures, despite the sun having only just set, the office was completely silent, as if it were the dead of night.
で、ももちゃん、進行のこと調べてくれたかい？
Was on the boxes. Ghetto froggy merch. Before riding the train from Shinjuku, Ban had called Momose in advance and asked her to look into Faithworks.
その前に
Smile still on her face, Momose glanced over at Yua, who was sipping from her
ゆ
teacup.
あちゃん、お茶を飲んだら帰った方がいいわ。日も暮れたし、ご両親が心配するでしょ。
Yua realized what the intent behind Momose's words were. Whatever the conversation that would soon take place was, it was not meant for Yua's ears.
私のこと心配してくれているんですか？
ええ、そうよ。
Momose nodded with a serious look on her face. Although thankful for her consideration, Yua shook her head definitively in response.
私帰りません。みやちゃんの死の真相に近づくためなら何だってするつもりです。
あなたはこれ以上関わるべきじゃないわ。
私もとっくに当事者の一人です。
An imposing, unwavering resolve dwelt within Yua's words. Momose was perplexed at the unexpected opposition.
意外と頑固ね。
ま、ここでのけ者にするのも酷ってもんだろ。いざとなったら警察で保護するさ。
Momose was forced to sigh in response to Van's nonchalant attitude.
ばあちゃんにそんな権力があるのかしらね。
ま、こう見えても一応天下の警視庁捜査一課所属だからな。
あらそう。
Upon pacifying Ban to a suitable degree, Momose stared intently at Yua.
これから聞くことは絶対に口外しちゃダメよ。これはあなたの命にも関わることだから。
はい。
Yua nodded, her expression far stiffer than before. Okay. Upon seeing that, Momose sighed once more, then proceeded to take a seat. Momose, hunching her already rotund body forward, operated the mouse connected to her laptop.
で、進行から何が出たんだい？
ばんちゃんの予感的中って感じね。
Both Ban and Yua peered at the monitor from behind Momose.
有限会社新興の親会社はのぞみテクノロジーよ。
Noah Organization of Medical Instruments. Nozomi. Sake of the next generation, for the people and the environment. We are already well on our way to a better About Us History for Inquiries sitemap. Nozomi Technology will be hosting a general European medical exhibition. Cumulative financial results of Q1 of the fiscal year. Our efforts to bolster the medical instrument development industry regarding human resources executives.
のぞみテクノロジ
のぞみグループか。こいつは驚きだな。
Ghetto Froggy.
進行は5年前にのぞみグループに吸収合併されたんだけど、それ以降発売した商品が次々と大ヒットしてるのよ。
Wait, let me, Hey, it's me, Ghetto. Specials. Ghetto Froggy, Body Ghetto Froggy, Rugged Ghetto Froggy, Smooth Ghetto Froggy, Shining Ghetto Froggy, Cat Ghetto Froggy, Limited Edition Ghetto Froggy, Spooky Ghetto Froggy, Sleepy Ghetto Froggy, Burning Ghetto Froggy, Zombie Ghetto Froggy, Newest Froggies, Super Cheap, Junk Ghetto Froggy, Goggling Ghetto Froggy, Legendary Deals, Dirt Cheap Shop. Hey, it's me, Ghetto. Items under the special tabs on the left on sale now. Items under limited edition Ghetto Froggies are the first in our newest campaign. Click here for more about our accessories, plushes, and all other bargains. Click here for more about our merchandise and dirt cheap sales. We're exploding with Froggies. Check out all the latest sales and snatch them all up. Spend 5,000 yen for free shipping. Info site about our dirt cheap merchandise. Insanely popular item. They're hopping off the shelves. Ghetto Froggy. Is there anyone out there that doesn't know about this incredibly popular, ugly, cute character? We are selling merchandise for them. The Ghetto Froggy. We pay special attention to make sure their unique expression comes to life in our merchandise. Join the craze and get yourself a Ghetto Froggy today. Shipping 525 yen nationwide. Order over 10 and shipping is free. 1 Ghetto Froggy. Price 1,800 yen. Product ID 348621. Add to cart. Wow. The website looks so much like 2005. So silly. I'll use this backspace again.
ゲロカイルンだけじゃないの。中国製バッグとかタイ製のエコバッグとか美脚パンで、この会社は商品の売り出し方が独特なの。いつも週末に新製品を一斉に投入するのよ。
Weekends. That word stuck out especially to Bond.
G レートとの関係は？
必然にしろ偶然にしろ、新興の商品がヒットしているのは G レートの変動の影響ね。それは確かよ。前に見せた G レートのグラフ覚えてる？ 5 年ぐらい前からずっと毎週末に値が上がってるって言ったわよね。
新興がレートを操作してると思うか？
新興自体はそんなに大きな会社じゃないからそれは無理よ。
となると親会社
のぞみ
が怪しいな。グループ総出で取り組めばレート操作だってできそうじゃねえか。
待って、のぞみの方はもちろんだけど、新興が興味深いのはそこだけ。設立当初の資料にまで遡ってみたらすごい大物が出てきたのよ。
大物？
井ノ原構造。
はは、明和党の重鎮じゃねえの。
新興設立当時はまだ民自党在籍時代だけどね。
つながってきたな。太田教授の時、それとこの前の地震の時。
G レートのグラフのことだけど、いろいろ調べてたら他にも面白いパターンを見つけたわ。
As of now, there are two aspects about the GE rates that Momose had her attention on. First, the fact that they consistently rose each and every weekend. The maximum values themselves are not particularly notable, but aside from New Year's Golden Week and the Bond Festival, they always went up without fail. And second, the drastic rise following earthquakes. For both the quake 2 months ago, in which there were more than 8 fatalities, and the quake 1 week ago, in which there were more than 100 fatalities, the GE rate had shown an extreme upsurge for a short period of time.
3つ目のパターン。この5年で4回だけ起きてるわ。時期はどれもまちまち。上昇値は地震の時ほどじゃないけど結構高いの。
最初はこれが何を意味しているのかわからなかったんだけど、調べていくうちにこの5年で4回と符合するイベントに行き着いた。
Okay. Well, oops.
イベント。
もったいぶらずに欲しい。
選挙よ。週3合わせて4度行われた選挙日とその4回の GE レート上昇の日は完全に同じだったわ。
Bond stroked his unshaven chin with a stern look on his
野党だっ
face.
た明和党が大躍進を遂げて与党になった選挙は
4年前ですね。
そして井ノ原幸三が民自党を電撃的に離党して、
A heavy silence hung in the air around the three of them.
なんだか私、お話を聞いていたら怖くなってきました。
Yora's voice trembled slightly as she murmured.
私もびっくりだわ。ここまでキーワードがぴったり当てはまるなんてね。
まだ状況証拠でしかないがな。それでも G レートのことを知っていたからこそ気づけたわけだ。知らなかったらさっぱりだったろ。
As he said that, Bond nonchalantly retrieved his favorite handheld fan and began waving it at himself.
ところで、俺が調べた女子高生の生態について話していいかい？
Almost bewildered by Bond's sudden change of topic, stared daggers at the detective.
ねえ、いきなりそんなくだらないこと言い出すんじゃないわよ。
ねえ、そういうなって。
A slight smirk colored Bond's face, but his eyes did not match such a sentiment.
青いセナについてだ。正しくは旗のセナと言うべきか。なぜか最近になって母親の旧姓を使い始めたんだよな。その畑野セナの父親畑野一世は今失踪して行方不明らしいんだが、のぞみテクノロジーの元社員なんだよ。
どういうこと？
どういうことも何もそのまんまさ。
Nozomi Technology was a company that primarily developed software for use in medical equipment. The Nozomi Group had begun with Nozomi Technology, but through repeated mergers and acquisitions, it had become one of Japan's top leading conglomerates.
半年前、畑野セナの母親と生後1年の妹が謎の死を遂げている。父親の畑野セナ本人もそれと前後して当時預けられていたとある施設を脱走するって騒ぎを起こした。
施設ですか？
天神寮っていう非営利の自立更生支援施設だ。
表向きってじゃあ裏がある？
スポンサーがいるのさ。これが天聖振興会だったりする。
天聖振興会。
Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. Momose grimaced at those words. She then spoke once more, her tone now clearly exasperated.
また面倒な。
ちなみにその天神寮は2年前まで別の名前だった。アークハートメディカル。
Arc Heart
どんな
Medical.
偶然か今や渋谷の若者のカリスマ的存在であるフェス岸本綾瀬もここに入れられていたんだな。畑野セナとは入れ違いだったみてえだが。
Banlan leaned forward toward Momose and Yua.
でだ、アークハートメディカル会は天神寮と違ってメンタルケア施設だ。ところが2年前アークハートメディカル会は突然非営利団体の自立更生支援施設天神寮へと姿を変えた。それによって精神科医が一斉に解雇されたんだが、その医師たちを丸ごと雇い入れたのが代々木にある AH 東京総合病院だった。
Every single one of them got employed at the AH Tokyo General Hospital. It's a place we
ノ
go.
ータリン事件で殺された人が勤めていたのってそこの病院でしたよね。
ああ、高階文夫。確かについでに言うとそこの病院長は井ノ原と懇意らしいぜ。
また井ノ原議員ね。
ゆあちゃん、君が追ってた西条拓実も 実は AH 東京総合病院を
そうなんですか？
警察がずっと尾行してたんでね。しかも西条には数年前にその病院に入院した記録まであった。不思議なのは西条の入院記録なんだよな。これは退院した記録はなかった。
誰かが改ざんしたのかしら。
10 years old.
どうだかな。そこまでは調べが回らなくてね。ああ、それと畑野瀬名に関してもう一つ。最近彼女がよく行動を共にしている折原梢って生徒が1ヶ月ほど前にいて、この子も結構な曰くつきなんだ。折原の父親がのぞみグループの系列会社社員なわけ。元は広島の方に住んでてな。折原梢の同級生3人が何者かに襲われて、3人ともが右腕を鋭利な刃物で切断されて、折原もその場に居合わせていた。彼女が犯人じゃねえかって疑いがかかったんだ。それで地元に居づらくなって引っ越した。
凶器が存在しない？
まあ、存在しないだ。犯行は折原以外には実行できない状況だった。だが、かまいたち現象じゃないかなんて本気で議論されたぐらいだ。
何もないところから剣を取り出す手品
かもしれねえな。
君が悪いです。
Yeah. As if trying to stop herself from trembling, hunched down toward her knees and began to stroke both of her arms with her
何
hands.
かとても大きな意志が働いているような。
職業柄俺は陰謀論なんざ信じちゃいねえんだが、名和と G レートに関係してると思われるのはその
天聖振興会も叩けば埃が出てきそうね。もとも
I
とあ
think
まり
some
いい
of her
噂は
team
聞かない
also
し、
shrugged her shoulders.
バンちゃんには呆れるわ。本来の仕事をほったらかしにしてこんな。
元はといえばももちゃんが G レートのことを教えてくれたのがいけないんだぜ。
そうだけど、それで捜査本部から外されちゃったら世話ないわ。本当に不器用なんだから、あんたって人は。
Oops. Those words are neither those of astonishment nor of condemnation, rather a fairly roundabout way of praising him. Monse, despite her words, acknowledged Bon in his pursuits. Oh, phone.
電話だ。
Bon's cell phone let out an electronic tune. Looking at the display, he saw that the caller was a restricted number.
もしもし。
Loud static could be heard from the other end of the call. Bon took the phone away from his ear and looked at the display once more. His connection was good, so he was likely not the issue. It must have been the caller causing the problem. Bon brought his ear close to the phone, believing that the call was coming from someplace far away.
誰だ？
Oh, it's like you said, he's been getting these calls, right? Telling him to... This is one of the anonymous threatening phone calls he had been receiving recently. The mechanical sounding voice was likely due to the use of a voice changer. Bon let out an audible laugh before proceeding to answer.
あんたか。いい加減名乗ってくんねえかな。手を引けって言われてもな。そもそも何から手を引きゃいいんだ。そこを具体的に言ってもらわねえと。
Is it sure? They always hung up there, always after saying back off twice. The pattern repeated itself so often it was practically routine. No matter how much Bon tried to speak to them, there was never an answer. But on this day, that would finally change. It also is, yeah. I wonder if the Takumi we know is like, you know, delusion made by Shogun to be like if he, you know, was able to get out of the hospital? Question. Or else. Or else what? Oh.
誰だ？
Suha? Upon hearing that, Bon finally understood whose distressed voice it was on the other end of the call.
諏訪か？誰にやられた？今どこにいる？相手は一人なんだな。
Suha, no.
おい、大丈夫なのか？
Ah, H. Ah, that's right, he was asking Hazuki-san.
諏訪、おい、諏訪。
No matter how much Bon called out to him, there was no response from the other end of the call. The click of his tongue, Bon hung up. Melissa and Yo were looking at Bon with intense
諏訪
concern.
ちゃんに何かあったの？
Bon stood up and lightly slapped his cheeks twice.
諏訪が人質に取られた。
まさか迷惑と？
ああ、わかんないが。
応援を頼んだ方がいいわ。
大ごとにしたらそれこそ諏訪の命はねえよ。俺一人で様子を見てくる。
Bon placed his favorite handheld fan on top of the table, close to where Momosa's hands rested. Following this, he took a good long look at each of the girls. His demeanor was like that of an entirely different person's. The unreliable middle-aged detective that he had so often played was nowhere to be seen. All there was now was an intense, fearless expression on his
もも
face.
ちゃんと岩ちゃんもどこかに身を隠せ。わかったな。
Okay. Action time? Through no will of my own, my legs moved in the direction of my base. Okay, Taku. They were so heavy, so heavy in fact, I wondered if my heels were packed with blood. Except it wasn't just my legs, my entire body felt heavy. But despite how hard it was to move, I kept telling myself that it was proof that my body existed, that I wasn't a delusionary existence. The sun had already set, meaning there was no one in the city to pay any attention to me as I staggered through the streets. Before now, I would push everyone away, telling them not to look at me. I was scared of getting too much attention, of being a laughingstock. But even though I'd done that for so long, right now I just wanted someone, anyone to look at me. I wanted someone to see me with their eyes. I wanted someone to acknowledge that I was here. That was the deus ex machina I needed. But no one did. If I randomly yelled out something, I'd probably get looks of disdain, but I didn't have the willpower to go through with that. Within my sweaty hand was my cell phone, the one I'd gone out to buy with Nanami. I only had 4 numbers registered on it. Mimi's cell phone, Nanami's cell phone, Misumi-kun's cell phone, and the number from my parents' house. I tried desperately to think of a way to prove I wasn't fake with just those 4 phone numbers.
あなたは妄想の存在なんだよ。
No, I wasn't a delusionary existence. I was real. I was Nishijo Takumi. I was 17 years old. I was the 2nd year at Suime Academy. I was in a family of 4. I was...
助けて。僕を証明して。
My teeth were chattering. A clearly audible clacking sound. I wasn't cold whatsoever, and yet I trembled all the same.
助けてよ。
From the 4 numbers I had, I chose Misumi-kun's.
はい。
ミス。
ダークだろ。どうしたんだ？リミとうまいこと言ったか？感謝しろよ。気を使って2人にしてやったんだからよ。
Misumi-kun was the same as ever. That at least brought me some relief. He did know. He recognized me as Nishijo Takumi. So I wasn't a delusionary existence. Mimi had just been lying. I knew it.
そういえば、ついさっき美奈子から言われたんだけどよ。
え？
ああ、俺の女。で、美奈子が言うんだよ。ここ1ヶ月ぐらい、日常と急に仲良くなったけど、なんでって。こいつ何言ってんだって最初は思ったんだけど、そもそも俺、普 通だったらお前みたいなやつとは絶対関わろうとしねえんだよな。リミを通して知り合ったってのはなんとなく記憶にあるんだけどよ、細かいことはなぜか思い出せねえんだよな。
It was the same. It was the same situation I'd experienced earlier. Stop it. I don't want this. Don't say anything else, please. You could have just talked about girls like you always do. So why, today of all days, did you have to?
お前さ、いつ俺とダチになったんだっけ？
Oh, you just hung up. Hang up. I got too freaked out, so I instantly hung up. I felt like I was about to cry, yet no tears came. It simply felt like my heart was being torn to shreds. Next, I decided to try calling home. Despite how hard my fingers were trembling, I somehow managed to select the number and press the call button. None of me had registered this one. I hadn't put it in myself, so there was no doubt the call would go through. Considering what time it was, would my dad be home? Had my mom left already? Was Nanami there? Even if it did connect, what would I even say? Hey, I'm your son, right? They'd probably think I was screwing with them, that I was being stupid, when in truth it was a stupid question. What if they said no? What if they said, our son Takumi is eating dinner with his sister in the living room? What if the phone call that was supposed to prove I was real actually did the exact opposite? What if they asked, who are you? As negative thoughts continued to swell up in my mind, I grew more and more afraid. I didn't want to know the outcome. I was really scared. I couldn't control it. I felt like I was about to go insane. My breathing grew ragged. I could barely breathe anymore. Right then, the call connected. With the phone next to my ear, I prepared myself. Okay.
あなたがおかけになった電話番号は現在使われておりません。
It's been disconnected.
番号をご確認の上、もう一度おかけ直しください。
No one would prove that I was me. There was no one that could. I wanted to die. Raising my head, I noticed Yamanote Dori in front of me. Lots of cars coming and going. Oh gosh, Takumi. Don't do anything rash here. As for the rest that I died, there's no value in a fake being alive. I was worthless. Let's save. I'll just make a new save file. I'll just go no delusion, but even if a monster did try and live in this world, they just end up being persecuted. I had neither hopes nor dreams. My existence itself was repulsive to people. I wanted to be freed from all of this. If I died, I'd be free. After all, there'd be no more need to think. There'd be nothing more to suffer from. There'd be no one to laugh at me. There'd be no one to betray me. I wanted nothingness. I brought my heavy legs one step forward. In this place free of traffic lights, I staggered onto the road. I had a feeling that salvation awaited me there. A glaring brightness from a pair of headlights, the discordant noise of a car horn, the unnerving sound of squealing tires. Come on, kill me. Kill this fake me. This unsightly monster. Kill me. But no matter how long I waited, the impact never came. I opened my eyes. A car was stopped right in front of me. I was still standing on the road on my own 2 feet. The driver got out and started shouting at me about something. He shoved me as he kept on screaming. Why? I broke down crying then and there.
どうして引き殺してくれないんだ。
Why won't anyone save me? Why won't anyone release me? Was a fake not even worth killing? Saki Ataniri walked beneath the Shibuya station underpass. She took out her cell phone. She had walked straight here right after parting ways with Takumi. She then selected the number registered in her address book as Nana-chan and placed a call. They picked up at the very next moment.
私、実はちょっとした報告があります。ナナちゃんをこれから助けに行こうと思って。
Mimi had an idea of where Nanami was being held, as well as who had abducted her, a theory she had only come to because she had been in a similar situation herself once before. It was a past she wanted to forget, but it was one she was ready to confront in order to rescue Nanami, no matter how steeped in darkness those memories may be. Oops, sorry. The reaction of whom she had called was exactly as Mimi had predicted, leading her to inevitably start laughing.
私って信用されてないな。平気だってば。
Both her voice and expression were cheerful. Not an ounce of the grim resolve she carried could be felt. To an outside observer, it would simply look as if she was having a fun, engaging
昔の
conversation.
話だしね。そもそも私の感情とナナちゃんを助けることとどっちを優先させるかなんて決まりきってることだよ。言ったでしょ。私はあなたの力になりたいって。それに特には関わらせたくないの。
Sorry, my cat. She's on my desk right now. As she said that, Mimi's expression clouded over.
ねえ、ちょっとだけ語っちゃっていいかな。タクにね、いろいろひどいこと、しかもそんなことしておいてすごく自分勝手なんだけど、私彼と一緒に過ごした時間はとっても楽しかったって思っちゃった。何もかもが妄想でまみれたまやかしでしかなかったのに、学生生活もあの学校に私やタクが通ってることも、大ちんと友達だっていうことも、私がタクと一緒にいようとしたことも、タクの存在そのものも。
Little by little, Mimi's pace slowed. Multiple strangers passed her by.
タクってどうしようもないくらい情けなくて、どうしようもないくらい弱くて、きっと普通の女だったら見向きもしないような男の子なんだよ。
As she spoke, she squeezed the hand she held the cell phone with.
なのに私の心には、なのに私の心には、もっと一緒に。この気持ちって何なのかな。
Looking up, she saw the neon-lit night sky. No stars were in sight. For an ephemeral moment, Mimi stood beneath it. A slight smile rose to her face when she received a response.
さてと、そろそろ切るね。本当に大丈夫だって。ね、たくみ。
Okay. Having lost all of my willpower, before I realized it, I found myself back in my base. I didn't know how I'd gotten here after failing to die at Yamanote Dori. The memory was hazy.
このコンテナって
It was
誰が
something
どう
I
やっ
never
て
even
ここ
thought
まで
about until
運んだん
now.
だろう。
But now that I was, I couldn't help but notice how odd it felt. Ah, my cat! Wait, why can't I go back? Okay. I guess maybe she pressed the enter key. Now that I couldn't help but notice how odd it felt. The more I thought about it, the more the feeling coached upon my mind. And when I closed the door, the room went pitch black. Leaning against the door, I simply stood there, still as could be. Inside the quiet room, all that could be heard was the sound of my shallow breathing and the hum of the fan inside my PC. I thought that maybe surrounding myself in darkness would make things easier, since I wouldn't have to be conscious of my pitiful self, but it had the exact opposite effect. Unable to see anything and with nothing else to listen to, maybe scroll words from before repeated endlessly in my mind.
あなたは妄想の存在なんだよ。
This disgusted me more than ever before. I even felt nauseous. I was already a disgusting freak even before all this, but if my very own existence itself was warped, I was already beyond saving. I wanted to disappear completely. As I tripped over the trash scattered across the floor, I stumbled my way to the end of the room. Turned the lights on, scaring away the dark. I then grabbed the Serotan figure, post-awakening version, that just so happened to enter my line of sight, and sat down in my chair. I brought her close to my chest. She was really small, and she was really hard too. She didn't breathe, nor did she speak. She didn't have the warmth that a 3D girl had. Despite that, she was all I had left. Nimi had left me. I didn't know where Nanami was. Senna had attacked me. Kozupi hadn't protected me. Yo was my enemy. The Ayase was hospitalized. These were the only girls I knew the names of, and none of them would do anything for me. Reality was harsh. I didn't give a damn about a monster like me. With my trembling hands, I tightened my grip on Seiratan. Tighter than tighter, tight enough to break her. I wanted to disappear completely. That was how I thought. Shouldn't I just act? Ultimately, I was just playing the tragic protagonist right now. Even if I was overcome with sorrow, no one was going to empathize with me. Nobody was looking at me. Nobody was here for me. They had all abandoned me. No, I didn't have any real bonds. There was no one in my life I could count as a friend. I didn't even have a family. I was a fake after all. Oops.
オタクばっかり並べてる。
Just shut up and die already. Sitting down, Seiratan, I sluggishly got up from my chair and found a plastic cord lying under my bed. I picked it up, made a ring big enough for my head to fit in, and tied the other end to a pipe of the loft bed.
死んでやる、死んでやるよ、死んでやるんだからな。
There was no one here to stop me. But of course there wasn't. I was the only one in this room. I managed to secure plastic cord quite well. Sorry. Hang on, I'm just gonna drink some water. Give me a moment. Dying is surprisingly easy, I thought to myself. I put my head inside the ring and tightened it around my neck. Normally, you couldn't hang yourself just from a loft bed. It wasn't high enough. But if I kicked my legs out from under me, then the height wasn't an issue. What I needed was the resolve to die. Now at the end, I looked over at Seiya-tan, who smiled at me from atop my desk. Starting with Seiya-tan, my wife was lined up on the shelves would be the ones that would see me to the other side. I was struck by sorrow. Loneliness filled my heart. I felt a twinge in my nose.
さよなら。
Placing all my weight on the cord, I kicked my legs out. The cord started strangling me. It was putting immense pressure on my neck. It dug into my flesh, hard. It hurts. Before I knew it, I was unconsciously trying to relieve the pressure with my fingers. I moved my legs back into place, then went to stand up. But if I did that, I wouldn't be able to die. If I didn't keep all my weight on the cord, I wouldn't be strangled, so I endured it. My throat hurt. Rather than being unable to breathe, the pain of it digging into my neck was the worst part. Hurry up and die already. The suffering continued. It was so immense I couldn't even pass out. My body swayed aimlessly. Around and around it swayed, my legs kicking up and down. The pipe on my loft bed started creaking, and suddenly, my body lost all support. And I violently crashed to the floor, landing flat on my ass. The impact I felt in the bones of my pelvis made me writhe in pain. And at the same time, I was desperately sucking in air. As tears welled up in my eyes, I looked up at the cord that had been tied to my bed, only to find that it had been snapped in two at the center.
なんだよそれ。なんなんだよそれは。
Of all times for me to fail. Why at the very end when it mattered most? I knew I was beyond saving, a good-for-nothing loser that hadn't managed to accomplish even a single noteworthy thing in his entire life. Not that I was a good person to begin with. But to fail even when trying to die, it was just too much. Why couldn't I die? Even though I wanted to die. Now that I knew how painful it was to be hanged, I would never have the will nor the courage to attempt it again.
楽に死ぬ方法を誰か教えてよ。
Seeing my shameless tendency to rely on others rear its head once more, I was hit with a wave of nausea. I really was completely and entirely useless. Okay. Human presence quickly faded from the hospital, cloaked in night. Perhaps, after taking in all the life and death during the day, it took this time to regain balance. At this time, the hospital housed neither the scent of life nor the scent of death. Only a quiet emptiness reigned. Banyasaji chuckled to himself as he realized the odd nature of his thoughts. Despite the minor self-flagellation, it did indeed feel especially quiet tonight. It was not yet time for the lights to be on. Leaving the corridors steeped in darkness. There's not even a single sign of any nurses. Let me see. They're like 40, right? Make a new file. Yeah. Feel kind of bad because it's maybe a bit of an abrupt ending to the stream, but yeah. I think I might call it here. Go back. Yeah. Thanks for streaming, thanks for watching. Yeah. It was, yeah. Yeah. It felt a bit, you know, too real there, so yeah. Thanks for watching. We'll get through more next week. We'll play more next week. Yeah. Going in the poll. Sushi is the winner, but overall it's pretty even actually, which is fun. Japanese Japanese foods do you like most? Sushi 33%, nigiri 22%, yakisoba 22%, ramen 22%. Wow. I think, I don't know. I tend to like noodles a lot. So maybe, I don't know, onigiri is really good too. Probably be either onigiri or yakisoba for me. They're all good though, I like them all. Yeah, alright. I shall go now. But thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a good rest of your day / night. Bye bye. See you. Good night. Bye bye.